We're live. A lot going on. A lot of wins for Donald Trump. I mean, remember when he said we're not going to be able to stop winning? Well, that's clearly the case here. Lots and lots and lots of wins, you guys, to tell you about. Lots of wins for us right here on the podcast. Again, Trish Regan Show in the top 100. Thank you for doing your part to help make this show such a success. I will say this. We got a lot going on. We got oil prices plunging again. The market way up. Why? Because the market sees this as a win. As what happened in Iran for sure as a win. Meanwhile, you've got a situation with Kathy Hochul and Letitia James who are losing big time because the Supreme Court just made a massive decision on deportations that puts the power in the hands of the federal government, in the hands of the executive office of the power of the presidency of the United States of America. We're going to get to all of that. But wow, what a day we have going on. Meanwhile, there's this New York mayor race going down as we speak, and let's just say it's going to help property values in the surrounding areas and Florida, I have no doubt. Quick look at Donald Trump talking about what's going on though overseas.
You know what, we basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the doing. Do you understand that? I got to get Israel to calm down now.
All right, so he's working hard on it, and he's been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. I got to tell you, he may just get it. I mean, this is unbelievable. Okay, we got lots of good news, lots of winning to talk about. Win, win, win. That's the motto and the word of the day. New York is panicking over the latest Supreme Court win for one Donald Trump because, you see, he wants the ability, if somebody has committed a heinous crime and has been convicted of that heinous crime, to be able to deport them to their home country. But what happens when the home country says, we don't really want them. We're not going to take them back. What do you do? Do you get saddled forever, leaving them in the prison system as a drain on American taxpayers? Well, he's like, I don't think so. You know, his team is saying, I don't think so. And so they went to the Supreme Court of the United States of America because you had district court judges, you had local judges, everybody weighing in on this. And they said, okay, we want the final answer. What do you guys say? And here you go. This was the verdict just last night coming from the Supreme Court. They say they will allow for the swift deportation of migrants to third countries. In other words, if your country won't take you back, we can send you somewhere else. That's the deal here. And this is just blowing everybody away. And you know what? This is getting lost in the shuffle, I'll just say, because obviously there are a lot of things calling our attention today, and we'll get to all of those things. But this is effectively Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, Governor Newsom out there on the lefty coast, California, and Letitia James's worst nightmare, because what they have decided is that basically people can be deported to third countries, meaning not their home country, not here, the United States. And they don't actually need to be given this meaningful notice. You know, they don't need to have all this time to appeal. The Trump administration was like, why do we have to jump through all these legal hoops? And by the way, it cost everybody more and more money. And they said, you know what? You guys can do what you want because we can't allow for these little courts to be interfering and intervening with the president's authority over foreign affairs. So that's a big deal. You know, typically, typically the way it would work is you'd have some kind of, well, this is what was going down, right? He'd try and deport someone, and immediately you'd have all these other lower courts stepping in and saying, no. This came down with the usual breakdown. You had the three dissenters being the three liberals on the court saying, we don't like this, of course. But I got to say, like, this is a big deal. Just to quote what those on the left were saying, Justices Elena Kagan, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sonia Sotomayor, they said apparently the court finds the idea that thousands will suffer violence in the far-flung locales more palatable than the remote possibility that a district court exceeded its remedial powers when it ordered the government to provide notice and process to which the plaintiffs are constitutionally and statutorily entitled. I'm sorry, you kind of had me when the district court is exceeding its remedial powers. In other words, when does a district court judge get to tell the president of the United States what to do? I don't think so, okay? So we can't have this kind of chaos and lack of law and order. And that's what ultimately was decided here. This is a big deal, okay? So New York's going to be flipping out. Everybody's going to be flipping out. I realize it's gotten lost in the shuffle, but I wanted to bring this to you because it's really important. In other words, this is basically confirming the supremacy of the federal power of the executive branch over these district court judges, and you can't get in the way with this sort of foreign affairs meddling. So there's still lots of questions that will have to be resolved. It apparently doesn't resolve questions about the Trump administration's legal obligations to the migrants, if they have any, what they are, and that'll all get litigated out. But at least from a most immediate perspective, and you better believe it, you better believe that it is going into action. In fact, Stephen Miller was just telling us that last night, was he not? Let's go to Fox News. He was on Hannity's show, and he's like, you better believe it. This is going into action ASAP. So in other words, they now have the right to deport people who have committed crimes, who've been convicted of crimes. They can get the HELL out of the country. It doesn't matter. If their country won't take them back, we can send them somewhere else. Listen to Mr. Miller.
This is an incredible victory, the Supreme Court win. It allows President Trump, as the law has long said, but the courts have blocked, it allows President Trump to send illegal aliens to any country around the world that is willing to accept them. So whether that be South Sudan, or whether it be Somalia, or whether it be Ethiopia, any country in the world that is willing to accept, we can get them out of our country and be free of them forever.
Wow. Okay. So there you have it. I think he summed it up pretty well. You know, this has been an ongoing issue. Don't forget, this became an issue in terms of Alberto Garcia. Remember when they sent him to El Salvador, and Stephen Miller was really fired up again, saying, how can you guys question the supremacy of the executive branch of the government if they're in charge of foreign affairs and they say they need somebody out and they send them somewhere? Like, how is this? And this case is slightly different, but you get the theme here. This was one of the most amazing, dare I say, performances. It's not really a performance from Stephen Miller, but he was really amped up. And I actually thought he did an excellent job at explaining it and saying, like, rather incredulously to the Fox anchor who was questioning him, like, how can you ask this? Because don't you believe that the federal government should have the power to send somebody somewhere? In this case, they were sending Garcia home, and that became such a challenge. Let's listen.
Number one, DOJ said a federal court cannot compel the executive branch to engage in any mandated act of diplomacy or incursion upon the sovereignty of another nation. So your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said, because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case, clearly, 9-0. A district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping, that we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So he appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention, and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we won the case handily. The misreporting on this has been atrocious.
Okay,
Secondly,
I appreciate
he was not, no, Bill, it's important. He was not mistakenly sent to El Salvador.
Okay, so do you still
He's an
believe
illegal
he is a
alien
member of
from
MS?
El Salvador. Hold on, this is important. In 2019, he was ordered deported. He has a final removal order from the United States. These are things that no one disputes. Where is he from? El Salvador. Where is he a resident and citizen of? El Salvador. Is he here illegally? Yes. Does he have a deportation order? Yes. A DOJ lawyer who has since been relieved of duty, a saboteur, a Democrat, put into a filing incorrectly that this was a mistaken removal. It was not. This was the right person sent to the right place. Now, some have said, well, but he had a thing called a withholding order. So a withholding order means you've been ordered deported, but an immigration judge is saying you cannot go back to a particular country. Here's the thing. If you are a member of a foreign terrorist organization, you cannot have a withholding order. Since he's in MS-13, there is no withholding order. Furthermore, the gang that he is accused of being persecuted by doesn't exist anymore in El Salvador. The 18th Street gang is gone. So you have an illegal alien from El Salvador. Bill, where are we supposed to send the illegal alien from El Salvador? To what country?
To ask you a question. Are you convinced he is still a member of MS-13? That was your original charge.
Yes. Not only, but here's the thing, Bill. Yes, but here, not only am I convinced of it, not only is El Salvador convinced of it, Bill, he's an illegal alien from El Salvador with the deportation order. So his only options in life, Bill, his only options in life are to be deported to El Salvador or to be deported to some other country. That's it. He has a deportation order. So, Bill, you tell me, what country should we deport him to? Tell me, please. Tell me.
So Marco Rubio on Sunday morning
and
said
so
this.
moving on. Anyway,
night,
I just thought that was really pretty spectacular of Miller. And it's related to what's going on. Though in that particular case, you're talking about sending somebody back to their home country. What the Supreme Court has just ruled is that these people that have committed crimes and are here in this country illegally can be sent anywhere. So you'll want to send them to South Sudan. In fact, that's what this particular case was about. Some people had been sent to South Sudan, which is a country with a lot of political instability. And so the Bleeding Hearts were like, well, this isn't fair. This isn't right. And the administration is like, well, these people have been convicted of a crime. And you're kind of interfering in the authority, if you would, of the United States president to control international affairs. I mean, we've been through all of this, you guys. They have the right, the federal government has the right to actually be the final arbiter, if you would, of who's in the country, who's not, right? They have the naturalization clause, they have the supremacy clause, they have the commerce clause. And we've said this before because I'm a big sort of states' right kind of person. If there's one power that the federal government really and truly has, it's the ability to control the borders. So they're going to lose this all day long. It's not going to stop them from trying to make a big deal of this, but they will lose. And this is what Kathy Hochul knows right now. This is what Letitia James knows. And this is why New York is freaking out, because Donald Trump is now flooding big cities like NYC with ICE agents, and they're going to enact what is being called the single largest mass deportation program in history. And now they have the Supreme Court saying, you know what, you can do that, and when you arrest them and you try them, they can go back to any country that you deem necessary. So, right, this is kind of up in the ante, and this is why Kathy Hochul is going to lose it. I mean, she may lose it because she's about to get a socialist there. We'll see what happens in the mayoral election. But it's like they just can't win on this. And we know why they can't win, because sanctuary cities, they can say they're sanctuary. Sanctuary states can say they're sanctuary. But if the federal government comes in and makes the determination that they are going to uphold the law in the state of New York or in the city of New York, they have every right to do that, which is why, again, you saw the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which was actually really liberal. And that's like one step before you get to the Supreme Court. But the Ninth Circuit actually came out just last week on Friday and said, hey, Gavin Newsom, even though you think you have control over the National Guard, when Donald Trump came in and said he wanted to federalize it, he had every right to do so. And so it went all the way up to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit, as liberal as they are, said, you know what, that power lies with the federal government and with Donald Trump, because, heck, why the heck do you, I was going to say something else, do you have these rules? Why do you have them? Why do you have a constitution with all these rules? Why do you have laws that say, you know, you can't come here with an open border if you're not actually going to enforce it? And so this shouldn't be that controversial, frankly. I get a kick out of people acting like this is some big revolutionary thing. No, it's just revolutionary because it's Donald Trump, all right? That's the TDS thing kicking in, because we've played you the sound bites of Barack Obama saying almost exactly. It's like this identical soundbite. Kristi Noem at DHS speaking today versus Barack Obama in 2012. It's the same stuff. Like, why does this have to be so controversial, right? You're legal, you're not legal, we have borders, or we don't have borders. But nobody decided not to have borders. So Kathy Hochul losing it and putting $50 million to legal fees for these illegals that Trump is about to deport to literally Timbuktu or wherever the heck it's so decided, she's going to get nowhere. She's just burning up your cash.
Do you want to know what I really think? Please. It's bull. How dare they take an elected official who's been going down there for weeks to escort people who are afraid to walk into a courthouse in the United States of America. So Brad Lander has stepped up to be a guiding help for them. And this is what happens to him. What the hell is happening to this country? I just left Little Haiti. People are being traumatized. Small businesses, people walking down the street. When I was there in August, the streets were mobbed. People were walking down the sidewalks. There were vendors everywhere. The traffic was crowded. Today, there was silence. People are living in fear. One woman just told me the ICE agents are going in and out of buildings there.
So that's kind of what was supposed to happen, right? I mean, I'm sorry, but yeah, there's another one that also the Supreme Court decided on just last week. I realize it's hard to keep up, but this is like win-win city, okay? So the Supreme Court said, you know what? That, once again, middle court judge that tried to say you can't reverse Biden's acceptance of 532,000 people from the likes of Haiti, Nicaragua, Cuba. I'm missing one country, but we got one more in there. You can't just have them come here, 532,000 of them, and grant them all these visas. And so that's been reversed, and people are really, really mad about that one too. But where did Biden ever get the authority to do it in the first place? And now that the Trump administration has come in and said, you know what, those visas are null and void, everybody has to go home, Kathy Hochul, the whole team, Letitia James, they're flipping out. And so they have promised a new lawsuit. Letitia James leading the way with 24 states on the federalization of the National Guard, which she's about to do in New York. She's trying to fight that one ahead of time. But again, Ninth Circuit already ruled. I mean, this is what's so bizarre and confusing. I mean, you guys are just burning up time and burning up taxpayer dollars and running up the legal bills with stuff that's already been decided. Okay, so this is no win for you there, Kathy Hochul, Letitia James. Oh, you know, Letitia, she's like, I'm going to fight. She sounds like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We're going to get to her, by the way, because Donald Trump just absolutely scorched her. We're going to listen to that. But, you know, this woman's totally unhinged.
And you want me to sit in my seat and stand idly by and allow this craziness to happen? You could come after me if you want, but you elected me to stand up. You elected me to use the law. You elected me to go to court. You elected me to continue to challenge this administration. You elected me to stand up for the least of God's children. You elected me to continue fighting on, and I will fight on.
Oh, yeah, she's going to fight on. She's going to have to fight Elon Musk, by the way, because that's the story we talked about last Friday. Elon is actually suing Letitia James because she's trying to put in all these ridiculous rules regarding misinformation, disinformation, and somehow she thinks the state can handle that. Letitia James is going to be the arbiter. How do you like that of what's what? And she's forgotten that we have this little thing called the First Amendment, but she's out there suing all day long because, well, they've realized. You know, they've been running wild there in New York. They've been running wild in Illinois. They've been running wild in California. And it's going to stop. Because now, what do you know? This law and order thing is kind of a big deal. I mean, New York City better brace for it. They've got the mayor race happening today. You've seen some of the polls. We'll see how this shakes out. I will say this. You know what? It's really hot. I'm in the Northeast. I'm not in New York. We got air conditioning in the house. But wow. Is it hot? So that means a lot of people, older people that would vote normally for Andrew Cuomo are not going to be voting for Andrew Cuomo. Instead, Zohran Mamdani is in the lead, which means, dun-dun-dun, if he actually were to get this thing, I have a feeling real estate prices are going to go up in Florida. You know, 0% tax Florida. This guy actually wants to put a 2% tax on anyone making $1 million. Oh, and he wants to raise corporate taxes to what, 11.5% from 7.5%. I mean, this is the socialist of all socialists. I mean, dare we even call him a communist? I'll tell you who did. Daniel S. Loeb. Wouldn't be surprised. So Daniel S. Loeb is a big deal hedge fund guy, billionaire, but it's just kind of funny. He said, wouldn't be surprised to see a bidding war on Trophy Greenwich, Palm Beach, and Miami properties if the communist wins. So he's just saying it like it is. Listen, I saw his little ad for grocery stores. His idea on fixing inflation, this guy who wants to be the mayor of New York, his idea to fix inflation is to actually just have government-owned grocery stores. I'm like, buddy, sorry, I'm getting really close to the camera. I'm on the road. I'm traveling at the family's house, my parents, and in good old Live Free or Die, New Hampshire. So it means we don't have the normal studio set up. So I'm getting a little close to the camera. Hope that's okay by all of you. Anyway, I'm laughing because I'm like, this guy clearly is so out to lunch. He does not understand his well, excuse my French. I was going to go there and I'm not going to say it. We're going to try and keep it clean, okay? But the guy, the kid, the whatever, is a moron who, in my estimation, doesn't understand basic economics or history. And so, you know what? If New York wants to do this, go for it, guys. You know what? You're going to pay the price all day long because Dan Loeb is right. Ron DeSantis is right. People are going to leave that city so darn fast, it's not going to know what hit them. I mean, they're already struggling. They don't have enough tax revenue. It's a lousy place to raise a family. Look at the kids' school systems that they have. They're the worst, okay? I actually did a report on this years ago. I think it was for CBS News. There were schools that would just pass kids along that could not read. That could not read The Cat in the Hat. Jack and Jill, went up a hill. They could not read basic English, let alone math. They couldn't read, and no teacher wanted to deal with it, so they just get passed through the school system year after year after year after year. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Nobody can send their kids to public school in New York City outside of one or two select public schools because they waste all the money on the teachers union because, those socialists, they want all the money for the teachers and none of the money for the kids and the programs and the actual excellence, no expectation, no standards, etc. So what happens when you lose all the money because you've taxed everybody to death? France tried this. Hollande, I do recall, right? Everybody left. That's what's going to happen. Okay, so you guys, you go for it. We'll see. You know what it's going to mean? A decimation, a total decimation of the party, of the entire party. One of the reasons this guy's going to win, too, is because you have so many people in the race. And a lot of the hipsters out in Brooklyn, they decided to vote early, and so their votes are already in. And again, we'll see. You know what? It's primary day, so I want to be somewhat cautious and careful about trying to predict any of this. But it's not looking good for Cuomo. And given the weather situation, you're not going to have as many older people come out to vote. And I do expect that it's going to be pretty challenging for the old guard. Brad Lander, he's one of the reasons why Mamdani may actually see this thing through. And it's because apparently everybody, once you go down, if nobody gets 50%, they have to go to your second pick, your third pick, your fourth pick. And apparently everybody who is not going to vote for Mamdani or who is going to vote for Brad is going to vote for Zohran second. And so this guy with his little stunt recently was able to actually, in a weird way, help out Zohran a whole lot. Here we go.
You don't have to. I'm not obstructing. I'm standing right here in the hallway. I asked to see the judicial warrant. By asking that you for a judicial warrant. You don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens.
Okay, so remember that he was carted off. He's like, you don't have the authority. You don't have the authority. I'm asking you for the warrant. And they carted him off because he was interfering with an ICE arrest. And let's be really clear, okay? The federal government has the ability to do this, whether Kathy Hochul or Letitia James like it or not. All right. And whether this guy, Zohran Mamdani, likes it or not, I'll tell you, New York City's going to be reeling from this one. D'Agostino's, they're pulling out. The big grocery store. John Catsimatidis, he's like, you think I can operate my business here when they want state-controlled grocery stores, state-controlled this, that, and the other, and higher taxes? No, thank you. Disaster. You know what's not a disaster? the market reaction to what Donald Trump did in the Middle East. I mean, this is unbelievable, guys. We're up yet again, 1% on the S&P, 1% on the Dow. NASDAQ up 1.4%. Great, 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 great stuff. And what's happening to oil? It's going down. I mean, you can't get a better verdict, because you know what? We can sit here and look at all the bias that everybody has. I mean, wow, crude oil down almost 6% right now. This is on the heels of when I was here yesterday with you, it's being down 8%. We can sit here all day long and we can say, oh, you know, he should have done this, that, the other. You know, everybody's got a bias coming from all sides. But money does not lie, all right? And when the market is trading up, it tells you they think that this is a good move, which leads me to why I do think that there's a real chance he could be in the line for the Nobel Peace Prize. We'll get to that. But first, you know what? We just put out another note yesterday to help make sense of all this, right? In other words, why is the market going up so much? Well, it's pretty obvious. They love what they see, okay? Regardless of politics, they think that this is the right move for the security of the world. Hence, the Dow seeing tremendous upside. S&P, NASDAQ, same story all across the board. Just yesterday, you're seeing more of it today. How do you invest in this market? Go to my financial research company. This is mine. I started it with a very good friend. We put out regular notes for you with regular stock picks. It only costs $1. That's my gift to you. I don't know if we can keep this going forever, but I just, you know what I said to Rob, I started this for a reason. I want you guys to have this opportunity. So go use code word dollar. Go to 76research.com today, right now. There is talk of a Nobel Peace Prize. How do you like this? In fact, he was just nominated by a gentleman. Let me pull this up for you. When the team members just sending this on, a nice letter. In a letter to the Norwegian Nobel Committee, Donald Trump has been officially nominated as a result of the Israel-Iran ceasefire. So Representative Buddy Carter out of Georgia recommended Donald Trump for the prestigious prize, quote, in recognition of his extraordinary and historic role in brokering an end to the armed conflict between Israel and Iran and preventing the world's largest state-sponsored terror from maintaining the most lethal weapon on the planet. President Trump's influence was instrumental in forging a swift agreement that many believe to be impossible. You know. So, but it's not done yet because there was a little snafu this morning, and both Israel and Iran violated that ceasefire, and Donald Trump wasn't having it. He was kind of angry. I've seen him this way before. This did not surprise me, but I was like, Israel, okay, watch out. You know, you signed on to a ceasefire with Trump, and he expects you to abide by the agreement. Iran, same deal. Watch.
I got to get Israel to calm down now.
Okay, he's going to get him to calm down because, well, there's this.
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too. Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because the one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the doing. Do you understand that?
Did you like my little arpeggio in there? It's cleaning up, you know, but you know what he said. I know what he said. He was not happy this morning. That was like first thing in the morning. He's like, you know what? But he'll get what he wants here. And what he wants is peace. And that's really good for the world, okay, guys? And that's why I can tell you this all day long. But in moments like this, given all the sensitivity, I think it's helpful to look at what the markets are telling us and what the investor class around the world is telling us. And they are telling us they like this very, very much, and that it is going to mean lower oil prices in the future. And it means good things for our economy and the stock market ahead. That is encouraging. He also spoke about the possibility of regime change. Now, I got to just say, this has been brilliantly played all extremely well played. And as transparent as he is, sometimes I think, he's saying one thing, but perhaps doing another in a way that's helpful to the world. I mean, it's kind of like, they sent the B-52s one way and, they were the decoys, but actually they had these going the other way. It almost feels as though there were certain things in motion before any of this went down. So as much as some will say, oh, it was all ad hoc, I don't think it was ad hoc at all. I even wonder if having Tulsi as head of DNI saying, oh, they don't have a weapon, if that was part of a decoy move as well, because it left some thinking, perhaps by Iran, that there was nothing that would happen. Even saying, oh, I'm going to give them 2 weeks. But he didn't give them 2 weeks. Well, now he's talking about the possibility of regime change. He's indicated maybe he's open to it, maybe he's not. He really is kind of reserving a lot of wiggle room there. I want to show you what he just said moments ago on Air Force One. Here we go.
Do you want to see regime change in Iran?
No. If there was, there was. But no, I don't want it. I'd like to see everything calm down as quickly as possible. Regime change takes chaos. And ideally, we don't want to see so much chaos. So we'll see how it does. The Iranians are very good traders, very good business people, and they got a lot of oil. They should be fine. They should be able to rebuild and do a good job. They're never going to have nuclear, but other than that, they should do a great job.
So he's not wrong, okay? He's not wrong. I've actually spent a fair amount of time sort of studying the economy of Iran, and there are a lot of brilliant business owners that would love to be able to join the free world in terms of capitalism, right? But, they get the problem with this regime that's very, very religious, the Ayatollah, et cetera. And so the question is, can you temper that enough so that the economy can expand? His thinking is if you get rid of the weapons, then maybe you have a shot at tempering it. As for whether or not you get actual regime change, maybe that comes down to the people themselves and the decisions they make. But all in all, again, this has been strategic and brilliant and peaceful in that you're not seeing the death and destruction that would normally come with something like this. Obviously, there have been some unfortunate situations, and we know of that given some of the targets in Israel. But I would just say overall, you're looking at hopefully, and, we'll see how it all plays out. I realize, what was it that somebody wrote something yesterday? I should show you this. I just got a kick out of this. Oh, here it is. I made a note of it on my phone. So Niall Ferguson, really gifted sort of political historian, wrote something that I found compelling. He just reminded me of what Kissinger often said, because he was asking what comes next, right, after these surgical strikes. And he said, as Kissinger often said, every success in foreign policy is just an admissions ticket to the next crisis. So I thought that was a good way of putting it. So we want to say, okay, there's peace, but you got to kind of always keep your wits about you and know what's coming around the corner. Nonetheless, lots of positivity. I mean, not from AOC. We'll get to that in a second. As long as she's around, she's never going to see anything because of the TDS, on steroids that Donald Trump does is positive. But he's got quite a comeback for her. In the meantime, you have the senator from Alabama, Katie Britt, saying, you know what, this president deserves the Nobel Peace Prize for this one.
Doubt. You look at what he's done with the Congo and Rwanda. You look at where he is with Pakistan and India and what he's done there. And then you look at this, what everyone talked about, but no one thought was possible. He has brought peace to a region that needed stability. He has shown what America First policy actually is. He's made sure that he's preserving American lives at every single turn. Look, President Trump understands what we need. We need a president who is unafraid to act and that stands firmly with the American citizens. That's what we saw today. And look, Democrats...
To echo what she's saying, there were a lot of presidents that had an opportunity to do this that did not take this chance. So this was a very bold move, and I do believe a very strategic move. And so there's an opportunity for sure. I mean, whether or not he gets it, because those Norwegians, they don't want to give him anything. They hate him, right? This would kill him to have to give the Nobel Peace Prize. But gosh darn it, I mean, between this and what we saw, I saw one of you guys in the chat mentioning Pakistan, and yes, he's been nominated for that, bringing peace to Pakistan and India. So this is very good. Again, don't take my word for it, because that could be viewed as political or politicized in some way. Look at what the market is telling you. The market is telling you they like this, but don't tell AOC. AOC is getting roasted by the President of the United States for her little meltdown there. Oh, she's not the only one. Jamie Raskin's having a little meltdown. You got Jasmine Crockett throwing the swear words out there in her little meltdown. And you've got Chuck Schumer apparently lying. He just didn't pick up his phone? Hakeem Jeffries was called. Nobody picks up their phone when the president calls. What the heck is that about? Okay, we're going to talk about that. But first, you know AOC, never one to pass up an opportunity to criticize the president of the United States, no matter how much the market thinks this is all good. She wrote, the president's disastrous decision to bomb Iran without authorization is a grave violation of the Constitution and congressional war powers. He has impulsively risked launching a war that may ensnare us for generations. It is absolutely and clearly grounds for impeachment. Okay, so she wants to go back there again. Well, Donald Trump had something to say to her, as well as Chuck Schumer. Let's get to Donald Trump's comment to AOC. This is pretty remarkable. I think some of you guys have seen this already. It just came out within the last hour or so. He writes, stupid AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, in case you don't know, one of the dumbest people in Congress, is now calling for my impeachment, despite the fact that crooked and corrupt Dems have already done that twice before. Okay, that's fair, right? They love calling for impeachment. They've already impeached him twice. It's getting kind of old, right? He goes on to say, the reason for her rantings is all of the victories that the USA has had under the Trump administration. Oh my gosh, wasn't that what I was just saying? It's like win, 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 win. All right, the Democrats aren't used to winning. And she can't stand the concept of our country being successful again. When we examine her test scores, let's pull out the SAT. Did you take that to get into BU, AOC? When we examine her test scores, if there is such a thing, we will find out that she is not qualified for office, but nonetheless far more qualified than Crooked, who has a seriously low IQ individual, or Ilhan Omar, who does nothing but complain about our country, yet the failed country that she comes from doesn't have a government, is drenched in crime and poverty, and is rated one of the worst in the world, if it's even rated at all. Oh, wow. How dare the mouse tell us how to run the United States of America? He's calling AOC the mouse. Is that her nickname? Interesting. She kind of looks a little mousy, yeah. I've never gotten the whole AOC is hot thing. I'm sorry. Maybe my standards are just too darn high. Gary, thank you for the generosity. Let there be peace. I agree. And flourishing life. I am all for that. Anyway, he's calling her the mouse. Let her run the United States of America. We're just now coming back from the radical left experiment with Sleepy Joe, Kamala, and the Autopen in charge. What a disaster it was. AOC should be forced to take the cognitive test that I just completed at Walter Reed Medical Center as part of my physical. As the doctor in charge said, President Trump aced it, meaning I got every answer right. Instead of her constant complaining, Alexandria should go back home to Queens, where I was also brought up, and straighten out her filthy, disgusting, crime-ridden streets in the district she represents, and which she never goes to anymore. She better start worrying about her own primary before she thinks about beating our great Palestinian senator crying Chuck Schumer. Okay, that's a joke because he doesn't seem to care about Israel anymore. Whose career is definitely on very thin ice. She and her Democrat friends have just hit the lowest poll numbers in congressional history, so go ahead and try impeaching me. Make my day. That's like one of his best ever. Okay, you gotta admit, that was pretty funny. A lot of personality in that writing. Make my day, AOC, he says. Make my day, Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer's all bent out of shape because apparently he wasn't included. This was not a very inclusive operation, and so they're all worked up about that. Although, if you listen to Caroline Levitt, apparently he was included. He just didn't pick up his darn phone. You know, sometimes you got to pick up the phone, Chucky.
Madam President, earlier today, we received reports that Iran has targeted U.S. military bases and U.S. service members in the Middle East, putting the lives of thousands of Americans at immediate risk. I join Americans. I pray for their safety. This afternoon, I asked the Trump administration to immediately provide a classified briefing laying out the full threat picture, the intelligence behind Iran's retaliation, and the detailed scope and timeline of any U.S. response. More importantly, I've demanded they lay out exactly what measures they're taking right now to keep our service members safe. As I said Saturday night, Congress and the American people are owed answers. No president should be allowed to unilaterally march this nation into war with erratic threats, no strategy, no explanation. That's why I've called on Leader Thune to hold a vote immediately to enforce the War Powers Resolution. The law requires the Trump administration to consult with Congress. The Constitution demands it. And the American people, especially the families of those in harm's way, deserve nothing less. Confronting the Iranian regime's nuclear ambitions and stopping their campaign of terror demands strength, resolve, and strategic clarity.
Yeah, Trump's not so impressed with him, right? I do believe he said, crying Chuck Schumer, whose career is definitely on thin ice. He's not wrong about that, by the way. If you see the New York polls, and we've looked at them, guys, wow. I mean, Chuck Schumer is in a lot of trouble, a whole lot of trouble. Like Letitia James is in trouble too. I mean, these people are definitely on thin ice, politically speaking, because they just seem to be on the wrong side of everything. But what's amazing here is that apparently they were called. And so now you're like, wait a second, Chucky, you're lying? You're lying to us? Is that the deal? By the way, just to give you a little bit of sort of background in terms of the Constitution and what's allowed, the U.S. Constitution does actually grant Congress, right, the power to declare war. But be very careful here, because war was not declared. Like, that was not, and he made a very specific point of saying this is not war. This was a strategic strike, but this is definitely not war. Anyway, so they're going, okay, he's declaring war, and, so they're going to Article 1, Section 8, and that would actually require, right, an act of Congress. However, there's something called the War Powers Resolution in 1973, and that does allow for the president to initiate military action in cases of what's considered, quote, a national emergency created maybe by an attack on the U.S., its territories or positions, or its armed forces. He may argue in this case this was a national emergency because of the threat that was represented vis-a-vis a potential nuclear Iran. And so that's kind of what's going to come up, and they're going to try and trap him in the semantics here. But I'm telling you, he's swinging for the fences, right? Like really, really, really swinging for the fences. And so I don't think he cares. I think he said, I get a shot to make the world a safer place, and I'm going to take it. And they can sit there and do this all day long. But if you think about modern history, whether it's Obama in Afghanistan or Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, Pakistan, you can think about whether it's George W. Bush in Afghanistan and Iraq. You have Bill Clinton making moves in Iraq, Serbia, Sudan, Afghanistan. You had George H.W., Iraq, Afghanistan. You had Reagan in Libya and Grenada. I mean, you can go on and on and on, right? Throughout modern history, we have seen presidents take these moves. And the reason they do them so strategically and precisely is because if you actually decide to get an act of Congress going, well, guess what? Then you alert the enemy. And so then your whole surprise is gone, right? You miss your opportunity. And so it doesn't always work that way in practicality, but they're going to fight this despite the fact that they've had Democrat presidents make similar moves. They're going to fight it all day long. Meanwhile, Chuck Schumer, I'm like, wait a second, are you lying? You say you weren't consulted? Nobody told you?
Madam President, earlier today, we received reports that Iran has targeted U.S. military bases and U.S. service members in the Middle East, putting the lives of thousands of Americans at immediate risk. I join Americans. I pray for their safety. This afternoon, I asked the Trump administration to immediately provide a classified briefing laying out the full threat picture, the intelligence behind Iran's retaliation, and the detailed scope and timeline of any
So they're
US
saying, you know, we don't know as you had any intelligence suggesting that there was actually a real nuclear threat there. But as Marco Rubio keeps pointing out, like, why the heck were they, you know, enriching uranium? Like, let's not be naive. Meanwhile, Caroline Leavitt is suggesting that these guys are all just flat out liars. Watch this from this morning outside the White House, her speaking on Fox.
We did make bipartisan calls. Thomas Massie and the Democrats, he should be a Democrat because he's more aligned with them than with the Republican Party. We're given notice. The White House made calls to congressional leadership. They were bipartisan calls. In fact, Hakeem Jeffries couldn't be reached. We tried him before the strike and he didn't pick up the phone, but he was briefed after, as well as Chuck Schumer was briefed prior to the strike. So this notion that CNN ran with at the White House did not give a heads up to Democrats is just completely false. In fact, both Senator Schumer's office and CNN had to retract that story last night because it was a blatant lie. And we showed them the timestamps from those phone calls. But I want to add something to Thomas Massie's false points. The White House was not obligated to call anyone because the president was acting within his legal authority under Article 2 of the Constitution as Commander-in-Chief of the President of the United States. We gave these calls as a courtesy, and the Democrats are lying about this because they can't talk about the truth of the success of that operation and the success of our United States military and the success of this president and this administration in doing something that past administrations, Democrats too, have only dreamed about.
Right? I mean, it is winning, 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 winning. And I'm going to be cautious because I know there's a lot of sensitivity around this. And I think the most fair way of valuing this right now is to just look at the market, okay? Just look at the market. Whenever anybody says like, oh, yeah, how do you think the market interpreted this? As a win, okay? A big frickin' win. I can say frickin'. I'm in Live Free or Die, New Hampshire. We say that here. Watch out. My New England accent may come out pretty soon. I'll be talking about putting something in the jaw and wearing my parka. Now and then it happens. It happens. Anyway, I digress because this is unbelievable. All right. Apparently they were alerted. They didn't pick up their phones, whatever. But the point is they didn't necessarily need to be alerted because, again, they're going to cite this War Powers Resolution in 1973 and the fact that the president is indeed the commander-in-chief, Article 2, Section 2, and has the authority to direct military actions. Okay, so I get it, right? Like, it's gotten a little murky. I gave you the big laundry list of all the things: Bill Clinton, Iraq, Serbia, Sudan, Afghanistan. Is he going to Congress for all of those? No. Okay? It's just sort of Obama, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, Pakistan. Was he going to Congress for every single one? No. So I think you just kind of need to understand that, yes, the world has shifted a little bit. You're going to try and impeach him over this? I mean, for goodness sakes, guys, again, he has the power. Mike Johnson said it well. Let's listen.
It is ridiculous for anyone to assert that the commander-in-chief, using his Article 2 power under the Constitution, should have to consult all the members of Congress or even all the leadership in Congress every time he has to make a decisive, quick action. I mean, that would not be feasible. So the idea that they're saying that what he's done is somehow inappropriate or unconstitutional is nonsense. None of them ever complained when Barack Obama and Joe Biden used the same authority to drop bombs all over the Middle East, all over the world. It's entirely inconsistent with their previous actions, and I think we call them on that hypocrisy.
There you go. Okay? But they're mad. They've been excluded. It's like, the spoiled kids. They want to be included in everything. Jamie Raskin siding with AOC, calling for impeachment. Now, he may not have wanted to go down this path, but watch the MSNBC anchor. She leads him right there.
Against a runaway president.
Congressman, you had Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez calling the president's decision to bomb Iran without authorization a grave violation of the Constitution, saying it is absolutely and clearly grounds for impeachment. Just real quickly, do you agree?
I couldn't read the whole thing, but it sounds like I agree with that it's an absolute violation of the Constitution.
It's the grounds for impeachment piece that I want you to weigh in on. So that right there at the end.
Well, without saying what anybody should do in any particular situation, undoubtedly a violation of the war powers of Congress, the usurpation of the war powers of Congress, would be an impeachable offense, would be a high crime and misdemeanor. I mean, you know, Israel said we've just, in what Israel did on its own, we set them back 2 or 3 years. So that's not an emergency. Remember, the president can only assert the power to use military in a context in which there's an imminent threat to us. And that clearly wasn't there. So we can add this to a very long list of things where the president has violated the spending power. I mean, the states brought an action because the president unilaterally imposed a spending freeze on laws passed by Congress, signed by the president, for $1 trillion in spending. They wanted to hold up all of these federal public health programs, housing programs, local policing programs, just out of the blue. Where does he get the doctrine that he can just do that? He just pulls it out of a hat. Well, the court struck it down, and gratefully, the states are there. But obviously, talk of impeachment today when we're in the minority, and we can't even get Republicans to vote with us on a single bill to try to restore sanity is somewhat hypothetical. But I'm with my friend AOC in saying we've got to keep a very strict catalog of all of the violations of the Constitution that are taking place.
Congressman Jamie Raskin, New Jersey AG, Matthew Platkin.
I'm sorry. Like, you know, you guys are trying to keep that little agenda going. And what happens? The Supreme Court keeps telling you you're wrong. Anyway, the White House said, and this is a statement made by President Trump, the United States took this necessary and proportionate action consistent with international law, and the U.S. stands ready to take further action as necessary and appropriate to address further threats. So, look, I think they're sticking to their story here that they have the power. Again, if you go back to Article 2, Section 2, the president as commander-in-chief does have the authority to direct military actions. And again, if you look at the historical precedent, whether it was Obama, George W., Bill Clinton on Iraq, Serbia, Sudan, Afghanistan, whether it was H.W. Bush on Iraq and Panama, Reagan, Libya, and Grenada, I mean, it happens, okay? So they're making something out of nothing here because, again, I think the president's right. It's how I say, you know, they don't want to win. Like, we're winning. Crockett, she thinks she should have weighed in on this before they did a thing. Well, that'll be the day, right? You want to have this one? who I believe Donald Trump called very low IQ, more low IQ than AOC, and that's saying something. I agree with him. Anyway, Crockett's out there swearing her head off about how she wasn't included in this. You know, you got to be more inclusive, Donald Trump. They all want to be consulted, just so that, you know, Iran has enough time to move the goods.
I'm the one that's supposed to make a fucking decision or at least get a vote.
Yeah. What did he say about her in this little number that came out today? I mean, calling it like you see it, right? I do believe he insulted her, seriously low IQ individual. He said she's actually far more qualified, AOC, than Jasmine Crockett, the seriously low IQ individual. I mean, that is saying a lot. I think I've said something rather similar. I like the way he thinks, you know, I do. I get, you know, I don't think that Jasmine Crockett is the most eloquent, shall we say, individual. As for her pure raw intelligence, I have a hard time, anybody that is a socialist who hasn't done any kind of in-depth study of what socialism truly leads to and the tragedy that it brings, if you don't understand the philosophy of the economy that you would like us to have, if you really do believe that the state should be the all-powerful, then it does cause me to have some questions about your overall sort of capacity for understanding things. And when you look at the Bernie Sanders of the world and you look at the AOCs of the world or the Jasmine Crockett's of the world, I think that it's not necessarily a question of, I mean, it may be a question of pure raw intelligence or maybe a lack of empathy. I'm not quite sure what it is. Sometimes I think it's just pure desire to have more power for themselves and thus the state, right? If the state has all the power and you keep the people down, think Marie Antoinette. Let them eat cake. Just give them a little bit, enough to keep them down on the farm, right? So nobody gets too upset. And then you have all the glorification and all the power yourself. You're the one that gets to make all the decisions. But I'll tell you this, going in the direction of impeachment, AOC, Jasmine, Jamie, all of you, you are so damn wrong. Okay? And listen to Van Jones. He's been around the block a time or two on CNN, a Democrat who actually is talking some real sense here. This is a smart guy.
I think progressives underestimate how dangerous Iran is. Iran is not a normal country. They cannot have a bomb, and I think progressives should get on board with that. We cannot have a nuclear-armed Iran. I was in the region. You were in the region. This is a very dangerous power that cannot get a nuclear weapon.
Cannot, okay? It shouldn't be that hard. And Fetterman is the same way.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says the president shouldn't be impeached because he's impulsive. What do you think of that?
No, I mean, of course, no. She knows it. I know it. We all know it. That's not going anywhere. And, you know, he's been impeached twice, and now he's still our president as well now, too. So it's not going anywhere, and I don't think that's helpful. And I think if you throw that term around, that actually diminishes what the severity of what impeachment is really reserved for.
Boom. Right? I mean, it's what Trump said. Because they've already impeached me twice. You're going to do it again? Come on. Again, go back to the markets. All right, guys, let's just be fair and square. What's going on in the stock market today? They love this. They love this. I mean, it's incredible to see. And again, I just like it because I can tell you it's great. But when the market tells you it's great, it just carries that much more punch, if you would. The Dow Jones now at 43,000 and change, up 1.2%. S&P up 1.18%. NASDAQ up 1.55%. Woo! Okay. And look at this. Crude oil trading down 5.53%. Amazing. Okay. So yes, they're talking about a Nobel Peace Prize. I think it could happen for him. You got the representative, Buddy Carter, was it, out of Georgia, recommending him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Senator Alabama backing it up.
President Trump is going to win the Nobel Peace Prize, no doubt. You look at what he's done.
Like no doubt. Well, you know, there's some doubt, just a little bit of doubt, because the Norwegians are not necessarily as hospitable to one Donald Trump, but he deserves it, man. I'll tell you, this is unbelievable stuff. And even Chris Coons, you know, he was asked on MSNBC this morning. This was good. I've been watching a lot of Morning Joe because I'm in New Hampshire, and some other people here like Morning Joe. Hey, and so I like it because I get to see what everybody else is saying, and for the most part, I'm actually impressed that Scarborough has been as fair and honest, I think, on this, and that you've actually heard a very optimistic tone, even from him. That may start to change as his ratings go down, but for the most part, he had a positive outlook on it. And here's a USA Today anchor who's on asking Chris Coons, the Democrat senator from Delaware, whether or not Trump did the right thing. And she's sort of suggesting that Trump did. I want you to see his response.
Lots of ifs, but if the ceasefire holds, if there's significant damage to the Iranian nuclear program, if they return to the table, does that mean that President Trump was right?
Look, I will, of course, agree that ending Iran's nuclear program would be a real positive for the region and for the United States. Exactly how he went about it, the lack of consultation with Congress, the lack of advance notice, I think was a mistake. And we don't know for sure what the real objective of the administration is. We had on the same day Vice President Vance on a Sunday show saying we are really only focused on ending the enrichment program. And then the president tweeting about maybe regime change isn't such a bad thing. I think it's important to move to diplomacy, to find a way to make the ceasefire hold, and to get Israel and Iran, the United States and our European partners at the table to secure a permanent end.
That sounded to me like he knew it was the right move, okay? So he knew and she knew it was the right move, that Donald Trump did the right thing. But of course, they have to have something to complain about. So they're like, why weren't we included? Well, you can't be included. Guys, there's a method to the madness, okay? If we telegraph it from here to Timbuktu, then guess what? You're not going to have mission accomplished. So this is one where, it was good that it didn't show up on Signal. Maybe that was a decoy as well. It was like, if the U.S. is going to do anything, it's going to somehow be on Signal first. But oopsie, not this time. Anyway, clearly, and again, you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at what the market's telling you. We actually have gold down a little bit today, so yours truly bought a little bit. That's what I do. When things go down, I buy them. So I actually got in very briefly with the market. I think it was just as we learned that Iran had struck Qatar. This actually wasn't really public. I didn't know about it, and I looked at the stock market. I'm like, why are we down all of a sudden? We were down about 0.5%, maybe 0.7%. They were on the S&P, so I bought a little bit, and I was like, gosh darn it, why would we be down? And then sure enough, the news came out like 20 minutes later. And then we learned that everybody was safe and okay, and the market shot way back up again. So the market was telling you something. The market's always telling you something. Remember that. As for gold, yes, gold down today, so I bought a little bit. I tend to just go in bit by bit when there are these opportunities in pricing. You can do this as well. American Hartford Gold is one of our sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show. Text Trish to 65532 for your opportunity to get up to $15,000 with free silver qualifying offers. You can call them at 1-844-495-1115. Again, 1-844-495-1115, or go to trishlovesgold.com today. Really interesting stuff. I'll tell you, the state of the Democrat Party is challenged. Okay? Like, that's me putting it nicely, because they're really, again, I'll try and put it nicely, feeling the heat. They are losing money left and right. They have no direction. You've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jasmine Crockett thinking that they're going to run for president, for goodness sakes. Whoa. All right. So a lot of key people are pulling out. Barry Diller's one of them. Mike Bloomberg, my old boss over at Bloomberg Television. I used to run the political coverage there. That was fun. I'll tell you about that sometime. Anyway. Yeah. Bloomberg and Diller, they say the DNC is ineffectual, and they are totally right. So they're pulling all their money. They don't like AOC. I mean, what the heck has happened to the place? Carville at least gets it. It's the economy, stupid, right? And he knows that these progressives talking their nonsense on this, that, and the other, what gender are you? And, all of this crazy talk, that it's not actually helping the party from a political perspective. You're not going to win with all of that. They've tried to divide, and they're trying to splinter off women, and they think that that's actually going to work. It doesn't. Like, the divide and conquer thing really doesn't work. We've seen that. Like, Donald Trump just won the Electoral College and the popular vote. So you guys are going to have to come up with a new strategy. Billionaire Democrat donors, including Barry Diller, Mike Bloomberg, Mark Lazarus in this crowd too. They're all pulling their money. They're like, why are we going to do this? I mean, here's Diller telling the New York Post, quote, for a variety of reasons, I have no intention of donating to the DNC. And that's going to be a problem, because you know what? He donates a lot. And this was a great quote. He said, you know what? President Biden came in, and his administration used a bait and switch tactic when it came to his promise of restoring the soul of the nation. I think the biggest crime in the Biden administration is that it came in with a pledge to restore a more civilized, selfless, and uplifting manner of government, and instead let us all down with a progressive elitism, personal ego, and cynical behavior. Such a shame. I'm with you, Barry. All right, the DNC's most recent financial filings, guys, they've just got a precarious $15 million. That's all they get supporting them. They bled nearly $3 million, I guess, during the month of May. So they're just getting clobbered. And you compare it to, say, the Republicans, who have $72 million in the trove. And Ken Langone said it well, right? He's the founder of Home Depot. Ken Langone is awesome. Like, just awesome. I've interviewed him many times over the years, and he is a pure red-blooded American capitalist like yours truly. Anyway, he said, this is great. You know what? Quote, we don't have to worry as the GOP party because the Democrats' positions are so stupid, they'll never raise money again. He's not wrong. I mean, they're really stupid. They want to have state-owned grocery stores in New York City. It's not gonna work. Just consult the history books. So anyway, they're all pulling their money, and rightly so. It's happening at a rather critical time. You know who's really annoyed about who may win the mayoral race here? Not that we like Cuomo. I mean, yours truly does not. But this other guy that they got, that maybe, I mean, like, that's a whole other ball game, right? That's going to drive real estate prices outside of New York City way up. We're going to get to that in just a second, but first, a shout out from another one of our great sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show. We're fully independent. We love it this way. Hey, you know, back in the old days, working in real TV, you think I could come and visit my family for a week like this and still be on the air? And you know I am, because I will not miss a show. When we got news, your Trish Regan is always here. Balance of Nature, code Trish, 35% off. You can call them at 1-800-2468-751, 1-800-246-8751. Balance of Nature, part of a healthy lifestyle, right? I drink lots of water. I walk. I go to the gym and lift weights 3 times a week. I've been trying to up it to 5, but it's not always that easy. You know, 3 kids, full-time job, running a business. Yeah, I got my hands full, but I try. And at some point, we'll get up to 5 days a week, trust me. But the gym, walking, all of these things are really important. The water, eating right, part of a healthy lifestyle, and taking vitamins is part of that as well. So I love Balance of Nature for that reason. You should check them out, balanceofnature.com. Use my code word Trish. It helps me, it helps the show, it helps you, because you get 35% off, you get free shipping, and you get a full money back guarantee. But this New York City mayoral race is really exposing the foundation issues in the Democrat Party, because it has been taken over by the socialists from the left wing. I mean, this guy has managed to build a whole movement, and the movement is good, because the movement means you're probably going to see real estate prices outside of New York moving up. It's good for anybody in Florida, good for anybody in the New York area, Connecticut, etc. Again, like he's got a good shot at winning this thing. We'll see. You know, they're going to the polls today, and the thought is that most of the younger voters actually already sent in their votes, and so they were relying on the older constituents to come out and vote today. But it's hard because it's so freaking hot, right? So Kathy Hochul has said we're going to have water for everybody. I don't think it's going to matter. People are really worried about this heat wave, and so you're not going to see the same kind of turnout. And as a result, this guy could, in fact, be it. He wants to actually up taxes. He wants to impose a 2% income tax on those making more than $1 million a year. He wants to boost corporate taxes from 7.25 to 11.5%. And I got to say, you know what? Hey, like, so be it. Like, you guys are stupid enough to elect this guy. Let it be a nice little taste of what could be more to come, should you try that on a national scale. In the meantime, I would just say, you know what? The donors need to help get everybody on the same page and chart a new course. Their problem is that Donald Trump stole all their thunder, right? I mean, he's basically become the party of working class America. And so the Democrats have become the party of the elites, and the elites that want to be the Marie Antoinettes and, you know, hand out everything down as they see fit. And it's not playing, it's not working, and I don't see it going anywhere. Speaking of elites, ooh, you know, this Rachel Zegler, do you remember her, Disney's Snow White? Total train wreck. Total disaster. She was just sort of the epitome of that elite, annoying young person. She's 20-something. I guess I can't call her a millennial. She's whatever the other generation is. She's the 20-something ingenue from New Jersey that really should have stayed as the star of her High School Musical rather than trying to break it into the big leagues, because she has cost a lot of people a lot of money. And apparently she's sort of feeling the heat right now. We've talked a lot about Snow White, right? And what a train wreck that thing was. I mean, she just cost the company so much money. And also, I would say she also cost the legacy of that movie a lot in terms of its reputation. But she was out from the get-go talking about how much she hated the movie. It's like, for goodness sakes, then why are you doing a remake of it? You ought to tell us how much you love it. Instead, we got this.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
So no Prince or a different kind of Prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because like we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Yeah, it's Hollywood, baby. And when you basically insult the movie that you're making, when you get uber political, as this young woman did, and you have a lousy script and lousy music, and you're not such a talented actor yourself, Rachel, well, what do you wind up with? A massive loss. So this is incredible. I mean, it costs somewhere around $410 million to make this thing, and they just haven't been able to make the money even on the international sales. So it's resulting in a loss thus far of $115 million, with losses projected to actually equal somewhere around $200 million due to lower than expected box office returns and additional expenses. So Rachel is apparently finally feeling the heat. Rachel's like, oh my gosh. And so she had to go see a psychologist, and she had to get some anxiety medicine to apparently deal with all of this. And so this is the new headline. The New York Post did a story on it today. Rachel Zegler reveals psychiatrist anxiety meds actually helped her deal with the Snow White backlash. It's amazing because, you know, if you listen to Rachel, there was no backlash. She was talking about how great the movie was. She was celebrating that she had the #1 movie in the world. And we're all like, really? Like, are you getting that delusional? Because it's definitely not the #1 movie in the world. I went to the movie because, you know, I have 3 kids and they somehow convinced me to see this. And I'm not sure who was more bored, my kids or me or the other kids in the theater. I mean, there were like popcorn fights breaking out everywhere because nobody liked this movie. It was unbelievably bad. I sat through it. I couldn't believe how bad it was. It was so trite. There was no tension or any kind of chemistry between any of the actors. The music could have been written by AI. It was bad, okay? So bad that Disney learned its lesson. It decided no more remakes. They were going to do a Tangled remake, you know, Rapunzel, let down your hair. That got killed as a result of this. So Rachel Zegler finally seemed to recognize that her film did not do well. And so you'd think, okay, well, she's going to own up to that in some way. But not really. She said she had to go on anxiety medicine, and she had to deal with her mindset, etc. Now, this was funny because she's lamenting all of this to the media and complaining about this. And then, and so clearly the victim, right? Like ever the victim. But then she had this little number. She said, quote, "I think a victim mindset is a choice and I don't choose it. I also don't choose nastiness in the face of it. I don't choose negativity in the face of it. I choose positivity and light and happiness." Gosh, she sounds just like Snow White. Was that like scripted or something? And I do believe at times happiness is absolutely a choice. And every day I wake up and I think I'm very lucky to live the life I live. Okay, well, at least the counseling is doing something for her, right? I'm telling you, the world is in part what you make it. And I'm not, I'm not disparaging or somehow not taking seriously enough that people do have chemical imbalances, and that's very challenging, and you need to deal with that, and should deal with that. But there was a study that came out recently, and it was talking about happiness, and overwhelmingly, what did you see? Conservatives were much, much happier than Democrats. And someone said to me, well, why do you think that is? And I said, I think it's in part because maybe we have religion in our life, and maybe religion is always teaching us to reinforce in ourselves what's good. For example, knowing that God loves you no matter what, I think is a very powerful thing, because when the chips are down and your Snow White hit goes nowhere and costs the company a lot of money, and people are making fun of you on the internet, it's really important to know that you are still loved, right? And that's where I think a lot of conservatives have it all over Dems, because they are churchgoers and they do believe in, in something bigger than themselves. And I'm not telling you what you have to believe in, but that spiritual feeling and appreciation for the world being bigger than just you is pretty darn important. And I'm not so sure Rachel quite ever got that. I would say the network itself, right, is being forced to come to some really challenging decisions. There's talk of maybe ABC getting sold off. I know that Bob is shooting that down, but it's still real out there. I think if he could get the right price, he would take it. They're not going to be able to make enough money. I mean, maybe they keep ESPN, right, because sports is something, but they're just not going to be able to grow those businesses given that they're stuck with those cable challenges, and given that, so much has changed. Look, I'm over here. It's amazing what we can do over here. So she's saying that the stress really got to her, woe is me kind of thing. And I would just say, listen, Rachel, you know what? The stress is getting to the people who have lost their jobs. Think about that for a second, because there are hundreds of job losses that are happening because you made some really big mistakes. And it wasn't just you. I would say, the director is to blame as well. The rest of the cast, management, marketing, etc. They should have probably put a tighter leash on her. Remember these tweets that she was putting out about Palestine when she was promoting her trailer? That immediately backfired. And so she was politicizing something from the get-go. And it was challenging, right? Given that Gal Gadot was from Israel. And so as a result of that, they had to rein in all of the tours that they were going to do, and they couldn't walk the red carpets, etc., because they were concerned about security. So she really did cost the network and the company a lot of money, and had no real appreciation or understanding of this. The guy who was the director, do you remember his son coming out? And he actually talked about this, and he was like this spoiled little princess, basically, right? Who just didn't get that there was so much riding on this. Instead wanted to send off her political tweets. I wonder if he was trying to deflect some of the attention away from his dad, because I don't think his dad did such a bang-up job, being honest, in terms of the production of this movie. The script was lousy. The script writers were terrible. I mean, just terrible. And they all had their woke thing going on. And now, it's coming down on Rachel, who hits rock bottom here, needs to see somebody and get special treatment. But once again, she seems to be missing the forest for the trees, because the stress may have gotten her, but it's actually important to think about what it meant for the rest of the organization. And then I would just leave you with this thought that, life is stressful, right? And how do you get through those stressful times? I think one of the best ways, really and truly, to get through all of that when you hit rock bottom is to have something more in life, whether it's your family, whether it's God. Hopefully it's both, because that really gives you the strength and the power to persevere and to always look at the glass as half full. My dad taught me that right here in this house when I was a little girl. This is the house I came home to as soon as I was born. There's been some renovations along the way, but I'm sitting in what was once our kitchen. It was really 1970s red. And my dad, we had this wood table, and he would fill the glass with water, and he'd say to me, "Okay, Trish, is it half full or half empty?" And I'd look and I'd say, "Half full." And he said, "Good answer, honey. Good answer," right? Like, have a positive outlook. It'll get you far. I have a positive outlook for sure on the market. I want you to share that positive outlook. I want you to go to 76 Research, use my code word $. This is my company. We just put out a note last night. We put out a lot of information with a lot of stock picks. Go there, check it out. Important stuff to do. Remember how successful, this is the positive outlook. Think about it. We started from nothing. I literally, Leslie be like, "Trish, the mic's not working today." I mean, that may be happening a little bit right now because I don't even have a mic stand with me. This is kind of crazy because we're doing this ad hoc here from the parents' house. But we started this show, and I didn't have any followers, and I just started coming on here live. I've gotten to know so many of you, so thank you for all your support and patronage and how much you've pushed this show. It's just amazing. And I guess it was good timing, right? It was good timing because all of a sudden people were turning away from the mainstream media and they were craving something different. And I never understood YouTube, right? Like, that was so, I thought, well, you'd have to be there in your parents' basement. I'm like nearly in my parents' basement, right? I'm in my parents' family room. There you go. So, like a real YouTuber. You know, if I took it upstairs to the childhood bedroom, I'd really have this medium conquered. Anyway, it's all about, I think, that positive outlook in life and really believing that you can do something and persevering. I mean, it's sort of a lesson I've had to learn throughout, because, you know, for all the successes I've had, there have been like 10 failures, like multiple failures. And nobody ever tells you about the failures. You never hear about all those. All the times you strike out, they only see the wins. But believe me, I have struck out quite a bit along the way. I always tell my kids that, you know, when they lose a game and they lose a race, I'm like, you actually learn more. You learn more from those losses, because it's your ability to pick yourself back up and recover that gets you much further in life. If you're somebody who just wallows in that loss, a la the woman we were just talking about, you don't learn from that. You won't be bigger. You won't grow stronger. You won't be better. Quick shout out again for one of our sponsors. Let me make sure we have our camera on as I do this. This is American Hartford Gold. You can go to trishlovesgold.com. You can get up to $15,000 in free silver. 1-844-495-1115. You can text Trish to 65532. Again, we appreciate everything they do right here on the show to make this possible, coming to you for free every day. It is great to have you all here. I'll tell you, I'm going to go enjoy my day, maybe hit the beach, okay? Because it's hot. We'll be checking back in tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have an update on that New York election and much more to go. Anyway, good stuff ahead. Winning. We like that.